Shalom Israel. Today we're going to speak about forbidden foods and how these foods are still till this day forbidden for us to eat. I want to start off in the beginning of the Bible at about I think it's Genesis 7:2. And a lot of people are very familiar with this part where Noah was suggested to take the animals onto the ark. And the stories tell you that it's 2 by 2. Well, technically that's right and it's wrong. Genesis chapter 7:2. We're going to start off at 1 actually. And the Lord said unto Noah, Come thou and all thy house into the ark, for thee have I seen righteousness before me in this generation. Verse 2. Of every clean beast thou shalt take to thee by sevens, the male and his female, and of beasts that are not clean by 2, the male and his female, of fowls also of the air by sevens, the male and female, to keep seed alive upon the face of the earth. So, Noah was told by God about unclean and clean animals way before the laws were set unto Moses to be produced to the Israelites. So even from the beginning, let's go over one chapter to 8:20. Genesis 8, chapter 20. And Noah builded an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt altars unto the Lord. On the altar, And Noah built an altar unto the Lord, and took of every clean beast and every clean fowl, and offered burnt offerings on the altar. So, even then, he used clean animals that God sanctified for us to eat to make offerings unto the Lord. So he knew the difference between a clean and an unclean animal. We're going to move into the laws of what is clean and what is unclean. And you can find these laws first in Leviticus 11. In Leviticus 11 it says, And the Lord spoke unto Moses and Aaron, saying unto them, speaking to the children of Israel, saying, These are the beasts which ye shall eat among the beasts that are on the earth. Whatsoever part of the hoof and is cloven-footed, and cheweth the cud among the beasts that ye shall eat. Nevertheless, these shall ye not eat, of them that chew the cud, or of them that divide the hoof, as a camel, because he cheweth the cud, but not divideth the hoof, is unclean unto you. And the carney, because he cheweth the cud, but divideth not the hoof, he is unclean unto you. And the hare, rabbit, because he cheweth the cud, but not divideth the hoof, he is unclean to you. And the swine, pork, though he divide the hoof and be cloven-footed, yet he cheweth not the cud, he is unclean unto you. Of their flesh shall ye not eat, and their carcass shall ye not touch, they are unclean to you. These shall ye eat of all that are in the waters, whatsoever have fins and scales, in the waters and the seas, and in the rivers, them shall ye eat. And all that have not fins nor scales in the seas, and the rivers, of all that move in the waters, and of any living thing which is in the waters, they shall be an abomination to you. They shall even be abomination to you. You shall not eat of their flesh, but you shall have their carcasses in an abomination. And then it goes on to tell you exactly what you cannot eat. It's a whole list of them. It's going to take me forever to read this, and my recording won't allow me to put all this on here, but you need to check out Leviticus 11. Basic rules just told you what you can eat. Fins and scales, and split the hoof, and chew with the cud. That's the two major rules for sea animals and for land animals. Plain and simple. We're going to move on. There's another breakdown to the laws in Deuteronomy chapter 14. Deuteronomy chapter 14. It explains what you can eat. Verse 4. These are the beasts which ye shall eat: the ox, the sheep, and the goat, the hart, and the roebuck. That's important to know what the hart and the roebuck is. And we're going to get that out of the Zondervan's Bible dictionary later, because there were some things explained in the two New Testament that these Christians misuse. The fallow deer, the wild goat, the pygarg, the wild ox, and the camelus, and every beast that parteth the hoof, and cleaveth the clift into two claws, and cheweth the cud amongst the beasts that ye shall eat. And if you go down to verse 8, it tells you, verse 7 and 8 tells you what you cannot eat. Verse 9, these ye shall eat of all that are in the waters, all that have fins and scales ye shall eat. And whatsoever have not fins and scales ye may not eat. It is unclean of you. Then it speaks of the birds that you shall eat. And 11. And then 12, it speaks of the ones that you cannot eat. All the way down to about 18. Then in 19, it talks about the creeping things and bugs that you cannot eat. 21, it tells you the laws of things and how you can eat them. You can kill them and eat them, but if something dies on its own, you can't eat it. You can pass it off to your neighbor, those that are unbelievers. You can pass it off to them to eat, sell it to them, but you cannot eat it. We're going to move on to some of these misused Christian doctrines and verses out of the Bible. We're going to start with Matthew's. This is a very famous one that is used by Christians because it is Christ speaking to the Pharisees. Now, what they fail to tell you is that when Christ was speaking to the Pharisees, he was talking something regarding not to do with the food itself, but the traditions of the Pharisees. Matthew chapter 15. Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees that were of Jerusalem, saying, why do disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said to them, why do you also transgress the commandment of God by your traditions? For God commanded, saying, honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth the father and mother, let him be put to death. But ye say, whosoever shall say to his father or his mother, it is a gift by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father or his mother, he shall be free. The Bible tells you to kill him. I'm going to move down, and it says, chapter 15, verse 10, and he called to the multitude and said unto them, hear and understand, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which come out of the mouth, this defileth a man. Then came his disciples and said unto him, knowest that the Pharisees were offended after they heard this saying? But he answered and said, every plant which is my heavenly Father have not planted shall be rooted up. Plants, these are clean foods. And then, hold on. Let's go down to 17, verse 17 of chapter 15 of Matthew. Do ye yet understand that whatsoever enter in the mouth goeth into the belly and is cast out through the draught or through the bottom? But those things which proceedeth out of the mouth come forth from the heart, for they defile a man. For out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murders, adultery, fornication, thefts, false witness, and blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man, but to eat with unwashed hands defileth not a man. He's talking about unwashed hands. He even says it himself. Please don't let these people misuse the word of God. Let's move on to Acts 10. This is another one that Christians like to misuse. Paul was given a vision. And in his vision, he saw things. And we're about to talk about this. This is Acts 10, verses 9 through 28. I take heed that you read these things for yourselves or read along with me so that you know that I'm speaking straight from the Bible and not from my heart, because I don't want to do that. I want to let God talk to you through his word. Acts chapter 10, verse 9. On the morrow, as they went into the journey and drew near to the city, Peter went upon the house and prayed in the 6th hour. And he became very hungry and would have eaten. But while they made ready, they were preparing clean food, he fell into a trance. And he saw heaven opened and a certain vessel descending on him as it been a great sheet, knit at four corners and let down to the earth, wherein were all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, and wild beasts, and creeping things, and fowls of the air. And then came a voice to him, Rise, Peter, kill and eat. But Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean. He's never eaten anything that is common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him again the second time, What God hath cleansed, that shall not call common. So remember 15 and 14. This is very important. This was done thrice, 3 times, and the vessel was received up and again into heaven. Now while Peter doubted himself what this vision which he had seen should mean, behold, the men which were sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house and stood before the gate. And he called and asked Simon, which was surnamed Peter, were lodged there. While Peter thought on the vision, the Spirit said unto him, Behold, 3 men seek thee. The sheet came down 3 times. It was regarding the 3 men that would seek him. Arise therefore and get thee down and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them. Then Peter went down to the men which were sent from thee, Cornelius, and behold, I am he whom ye seek. What is the cause wherefore ye are come? And he said, Cornelius, the centurion, a just man, one that feareth God, and good report. You know, I'm going to skip down some. This was at verse 22. Bam, let's go to 25. And the morrow after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and their friend. And as Peter was coming in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. And Peter took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. And as he talked with him, he went in and found that there were many come together. And he said unto them, Ye know that it is unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come into one of another nation. But God has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean. So 14 and 15, but Peter said, Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything common or unclean. And the voice spake unto him, saying, The second time, what God hath cleansed, thou shalt not call common. For God was giving forgiveness to the Gentiles. He had sanctified the Gentiles. He had made the Gentiles clean. And he realized it and said, But God has showed me that I should not call any man common or unclean. Wasn't talking about the food. Gentiles had bad habits, of eating anything and anything they could get their hands on. This was part of their pagan rituals, their cultures, the places they lived, the acceptance of the things that other people did. This is what made them Gentiles. What wound up happening after that is these people were converted. Cornelius and his people were converted. Let me see. Let me pause this 1 second. Now, if you go over to Acts 10, for 38 through 48, he reveals to them everything that happened when YESHUA was here on this earth. People call him Jesus Christ, but it's YESHUA the Messiah. And he baptizes them. So he converts them and baptizes Cornelius and his people. And you can find this in verses 38 through 48. I also want to take you back to 2 Maccabees. Now in 2 Maccabees chapter 6, you'll find from verses 6 to 9 that the Israelites by Bacchus and Ptolemy, they were being forced to be part of the sacrifices and feast of pagans. And that literally the word of God had become illegal. I'm going to read a little bit of it straight from the book. Neither was it lawful, this is verse 6. Let me start at verse 4 of chapter 6 of 2 Maccabees. For the temple was filled with riot and reveling by the Gentiles, who dallied with harlots and had to do with women within the circuit of the holy places, and besides that brought in things that were not lawful. The altar also was filled with profane things which the law forbiddeth. Neither was it lawful for a man to keep the Sabbath days, or ancients' feasts, or to profess himself at all to be a Jew. And in the day of the king's birth, this is where birthdays come from, every month they were brought by bitter constraint to eat of the sacrifices. And when the feast of Bacchus was kept, the Jews were compelled to go in procession to Bacchus carrying Uwe. Moreover, they went out a decree to the neighbor cities of the heathen by suggestion of Ptolemy against the Jews, that they should observe the same fashions and be partakers of their sacrifices. And whoso would not conform themselves to the manners of the Gentiles should be put to death. And might a man have seen the present misery. So my point of coming to 2 Maccabees chapter 6 is verses 18 through 31. Eleazar was a Pharisee or a scribe, actually. He was a scribe or a Jewish priest. It says in 18, Eleazar, one of the principal scribes, an aged man of well-favored countenance, was constrained to open his mouth and eat swine's flesh. That means they was forcing him to eat pork. But he, choosing rather to die gloriously than to live stained with such an abomination, spit it forth and came of its own accord to the torment. He wanted to be tormented instead of eating swine's flesh. As it beloved him to come that are resolute to stand out against such things, are not lawful for love of life to be tasted. But they that had charge of that wicked feast, for the old acquaintance they had with the man, taking him aside, besought him to bring flesh of his own provision, such as was lawful for him to use, and make as if he did eat the flesh taken from the sacrifice commanded by the king. So they want him to pretend, take something that's lawful for him to eat, act like it's swine, and pretend that it's the sacrifices for the king, and eat You're not supposed to sacrifice to a king. You're only supposed to sacrifice to God. And the priests were allowed to eat sacrifices to God, not men. That in doing so he might be delivered from death, for the old friendship with them find favor. But he began to consider discreetly as he became his age in the excellency of his ancient years and the honor of his gray head, whereunto he was become in his most honest education from a child, or rather the holy law made given by God, which is an honest education, and willed them straightways to send him to the grave. I'm not going to do that. I ain't getting in no trickery. You can just kill me. For becometh not our age, he said, in any wise to disassemble, whereby many young persons might think that Eleazar, being 80 years old and 10, were now gone to a strange religion. He was an elder. If he did these things, the young people would believe that they could do it, or that why did Eleazar do that? And so they through mind hypocrisy and desire to live little time, a moment longer. Just because you want to live a little bit longer, we're going to die anyway. You going to defile yourself with this stuff? Should be deceived by me, and I get a stain on mine older age and make it abominable. I'm not going to mislead these people into thinking just to get a little bit more time on your life you should do this. No. For the present time I should be delivered from the punishment of men, yet should I not escape the hand of Almighty, neither alive nor dead. See, I'm going to be judged regardless for eating that meat. You just going to kill me one time. I'm not trying to be judged by God and have eternal punishment. Wherefore now mainly changing his life, I will show myself such an one as mine age requireth, and leave a notable example to such as be young. I want to be example for the youth, to die willingly and courageously for the honorable and holy laws. Not the honorable and the holy Muhammad. The law is honorable and holy. And when he said these words, immediately he went to the torment. He was to be tortured. They that led him changing the goodwill they bear him a little before into hatred, because the foresaid speeches proceeded, as they thought, from a desperate mind. But when, see, now they rethinking it, like, man, you know, they thinking about it now. But when he was ready to die with stripes, he groaned and said, it is manifest unto the Lord that have the holy knowledge, that whereas I might have been delivered from death, I now endure sore pains in the body, but being beaten. But in soul I am well content to suffer these things, because I fear him, the Lord. I fear him more so to put that stuff in my mouth than I fear man whipping and killing me with these punishments. And thus this man died, leaving his death an example of a noble courage and a memorial of virtue, not only unto young men, but to all his nation. We got to be careful, because these people are misusing verses out here. There was another verse that I forgot to put in my itinerary that speaks, where it spoke about roebuck and hearts, and he said anything that's sanctified by God is acceptable. Well, I'm going to read to you sanctified, the definition of sanctified out of the Bible. You probably know what I'm talking about. Sanctification, definition, a separation or setting apart. While the noun does not occur in the Old Testament, the verb to sanctify appears frequently. Its meaning is not primarily ethical but formal. Its fundamental force being to separate from the world and consecrate to God. To sanctify anything is to declare that it belongs to God. It might refer to persons, places, days, or seasons, and objects used for worship. Among objects sanctified Jehovah in the OT are the firstborn of Israel, the Levites, the priests, and the tent of meeting, the altar, and the offering. We just spoke about Noah in Genesis 8:20, and how he offered clean animals. You can only make offerings with clean animals. So sanctify is foods that God called or made clean for us to eat. Hold on one second. I gotta get my coordinates because I want to find this verse. Alright, so I found it. Alright. Deuteronomy 15:22. And it speaks, matter of fact, we're going to go to 21 first. And if there be any blemish therein, as if the lame or blind or have any ill blemish, thou shalt not sacrifice. Because an animal with a blemish is not a clean animal by God in order to make an offering. And 23 says, thou shalt eat it within thy gates, the unclean and the clean person shall eat it alike, as the roebuck and as the hart. You're talking about the person. You're talking about people. Not talking about the clean and unclean animals. I think that's in Matthew 15. They talk about the same thing. That where people think it's when they say clean and unclean, he's talking about clean and clean animals. No, he's not. He's talking about clean and unclean people. I'm going to find it. And when I find it, because I just finished reading it, I don't know why I wrote it, didn't write it down. But when I find it, I'm going to put it down in the comments so you can check it out. It's a verse in the Bible where it speaks about clean and unclean, the roebuck and the hart, and how all those things, those are clean and unclean, those can eat. What they're speaking about is clean and unclean people, not animals. Because even so, he gives an example later about the roebuck and the hart, which is a male and female deer, which we explained back in Leviticus 11 were clean animals. I just want to spread the truth, root up some of these myths and these lies that the Christian doctrine has been whitewashed and feeding to our people for hundreds of years, just so we could be saved, we could be free, and we could start to get the blessings that we're supposed to have according to the Bible. See, because when we follow the laws to the T, we're blessed in everything we do, because we're set apart from everyone. But when we don't, we become full Gentiles and pagans, and we're cursed. And we're treated like the nations that were not set apart. So, open up this book. Don't just go by the verse and 2-hour message from the heart that these sinisters and that these asters, that's what I call them, sinisters and asters, will mislead you to believe. Read the whole chapter. Go all the way back to the paragraph marker. A lot of these Bibles have paragraph markers to tell you where one paragraph starts and one paragraph stops. Because the verses are numbered, it looks like it's all smashed together, but there are paragraphs in there. And a paragraph normally pertains all information to itself. So don't just take one verse out the paragraph. Read the whole paragraph. Normally you'll learn something, and that the verse that they're using isn't exactly what they say it is. I ask that you be very intelligent and smart as you are. And shalom to you all, Israel. May God bless you.